Welcome to the Pastor G Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Lindani Gumede, and thank you for watching this content. I am so excited to be sharing the content that I'm going to be sharing with you today. I'm going to be sharing on some 12, well, not 12. I'm going to be sharing on the 12 apostles, but I'm going to be sharing on interesting facts about the apostles. Interesting facts about the apostles. Some of these facts are their career choices, some of the items that were symbolic to the apostles, their names, some of their names that are mentioned differently according to different writers in the Synoptic Gospels, and also how they died. So, yes, I think it's going to be quite interesting. I'm a lover of theology, so I really love just getting to know more revelations that come from Scripture, and I love just new insight that comes from Scripture. So, yes, so I'm going to be sharing on the 12 apostles. This word apostle it comes, the first time it's mentioned, I believe it's in Romans 1, verse 1, where Paul then shares that he is a servant and apostle of Christ. Apostle means one who is commissioned or commissioner of Christ, one who is commissioned, one who is sent out. Let me quickly see it. It's apostolos, excuse me. It's apostolos in the Greek. It means delegate. It means an ambassador, a commissioner of Christ. And it is also a messenger of Christ who has miraculous powers as well, quite interestingly. So who were the 12 apostles? Let's start right there. And according to the Synoptic Gospels, which is Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they share who these 12 apostles are. Interestingly, that in those three Synoptic Gospels, the first one that they unanimously mention is Simon Peter, and the last apostle that they mention is Judas Iscariot. So that's quite interesting that in that order, that Simon is always the first and then Judas is always the last, but in the middle it does get they do vary according to the different Synoptic Gospels. So according to Mark, these are the 12 apostles. Number 1, Simon Peter. Number 2, James of Zebedee, son of Zebedee. Number 3, John, the brother of James. Number 4 and 5 is Andrew and Philip. Number 6 and 7 would be Bartholomew and Matthew. Number 8 is Thomas. Number 9 is James, son of Alphaeus. Number 10 is Thaddeus. Thaddeus is also known, his name is also Jude. The other Synoptic Gospels would call him Judas, brother of James. And then there's also Simon the Canaanite, and lastly Judas Iscariot. Then according to the book of Matthew, according to the Gospel of Matthew, gospel is good news, news that is too good to be true. According to the Gospel of Matthew, these are the 12 apostles. Number 1 is Simon Peter. Number 2 is Andrew. Number 3 is James, son of Zebedee. Number 4 is John, the brother of James. 5 and 6 is Philip and Bartholomew. 7 and 8 is Thomas and Matthew. Number 9 is James, son of Alphaeus. Number 10 is Simon the Zealot. 11, Judas, the brother of James. Also Thaddeus. I like the name Thaddeus. And then number 12 is Judas Iscariot. Excuse me, Judas Iscariot. Dunning's number, when we look at the Gospel of Luke, Luke 6:13 to 16. This is what it says in Luke chapter 16. Actually, I don't know if I told you where to find this. In the book of Mark, you find it in Mark 3, verse 16 to 19. In the book of Matthew, it is found in Matthew chapter 10, verse 2 to 4. And then in Luke, in the Gospel of Luke, it's found in Luke chapter 6, verse 13 to 16. And it says this, that these are the 12 apostles. Number 1 is Simon Peter. Number 2 is Andrew. 3, James. 4 John, 5 Philip, 6 Bartholomew, 7 Matthew, Thomas comes at number 8, James, son of Alphaeus, comes at number 9. James, son of Alphaeus, is also always placed like on number 9 from what I'm seeing here. Simon called the Zealot is number 10. Judas, the brother of James, is number 11. And number 12 is Judas Iscariot. Interestingly, that they mention again in the book of Acts, Acts 1, verse 13, they mention Peter, James, John, Andrew, Philip, Thomas, Bartholomew, Matthew, James, son of Alphaeus, Simon the Zealot, and Judas, the brother of James. Judas Iscariot is not mentioned. This is post the crucifixion, post Judas Iscariot had betrayed Jesus, and then Judas then had committed suicide. Okay, so let us go into details about the apostles. One of them goes by the name of Andrew, who was the brother of Simon Peter. He is, according to the Gospel of John, they were natives of Bethsaida. They also came from Capernaum. And he was previously the follower of John the Baptist. He was previously the follower of John the Baptist. He was actually arrested and executed in 60 CE, 60 Common Era, while preaching on the northwest coast of Achaia. He was actually crucified. So I'm going to be sharing a bit more on the deaths, on how they died later on, but he was crucified on a X-shaped cross, interestingly. Let me see, is there anything? Okay, so what is symbolic? The symbolism is an X-shaped cross for Andrew. Then there's a guy called Bartholomew. Bartholomew. Not much is mentioned about Bartholomew. You know, I don't know if you've heard many preachers talk about Bartholomew, but many scholars have identified him with Nathaniel. They believe that he is also Nathaniel. He had passed away in a country called Armenia. A symbol of Bartholomew was a small knife, because it is apparent that the way that he experienced crucial pain, the way that he experienced, you know, his persecution, and the way that they I don't know if the word kill is the right word. I'll probably get to it later. But the way that they hurt him and persecuted him was that they flayed his skin. They flayed his skin. They would take a knife and then they would cut off his skin, and they would flay his skin. And upon flaying his skin, he had to, with his hand, hold his skin. He'd hold his skin in his hand. Oh, it sounds so painful. But literally they would flay his skin with a small knife. Crucial and brutal, the way that they hurt these 12 apostles. Let's go to James. James the Greater. In all four lists the names of Peter, Andrew, James, and John are formed in the group. James is also quite important. You know, he's mentioned in the special crew with Peter, James, and John. They witness Jairus' daughter being raised from the dead. That is James. Symbolisms, or something that's symbolic to James, is 3 shells. 3 shells, because they are the signs of his pilgrimage by the sea. Signs of his pilgrimage by the sea. Then there is Saint John. Saint John. After the resurrection, John was among the first disciples to see the empty tomb, and by account of the Gospel of John, the first to understand the resurrection. When Jesus appeared in the lake of Gennesaret, John was also the first of the 7 disciples present to recognize the Master standing on the shore. James, it is said that they tried to kill him by giving him poison. They're giving him a chalice of poison. And so what is symbolic to him is a chalice. It's almost like a cup. It's something that looks like a cup, and a snake coming out of that, symbolic to the poison that, the way that they tried to kill him. All right, the sons of Zebedee, James and John, having asked for power. They were the ones who asked for power and authority above the other disciples, and were rebuked by Jesus. They were rebuked by Jesus. They actually, apparently that John lived in Ephesus as well. James was the first apostle to be martyred. His story is shared in Acts 12, verse 1 to 3. Actually, James is one of the disciples whom, I think it's only James who it's mentioned how he got martyred. The other apostles, it doesn't really give details as to how they got martyred, but James is the first where they give details in the scripture as to how he got martyred. All right, there's a guy called Jude, Theudas. Jude is invoked in a desperate situation because of the New Testament letter stresses the faithful, that the faithful should preserve in the environment of harsh, difficult circumstances. So it is apparent that Jude is, the person who had written the New Testament letter. But other scholars would say that no, the half-brother of Jesus, who is also known as Jude, is the man who wrote the book of Jude. So that is what some scholars would say. All right, then there is James the Lesser. James the Lesser. James the Lesser. According to the Apostle Paul, James the Lesser, should I rather say, was the one who witnessed the resurrection of Jesus, and he was a pillar in the church. James, his mother was Mary at the foot of the cross. Interesting. Josephus says that James traveled to Syria, and it mentions how he dies, which I'll get into details. But it is also believed that James, a symbol of an item that symbolized James is a saw, because it's brutal. But his body was sawed in pieces. Crazy. Then there's a guy by the name of Matthew called Levi. He is described as a tax collector. This guy was in the financial field. He is the author of the Gospel of Matthew, which was written between 85 to 90 CE, Common Era. It is believed that he had traveled to Ethiopia, and he died in Ethiopia. This is quite interesting because then it kind of gives revelation that the gospel did not arrive when colonization arrived here in Africa, or when Africans got colonized. Actually, the gospel arrived long before colonization. That even Matthew traveled to Ethiopia. That is, for me, quite interesting. The item that symbolizes Matthew is money bags, because he was a tax collector. Then there's a guy called Matthias. Matthias was one of the 70 disciples of Jesus and had been with him from his baptism by John to the to the ascension. All right, let me quickly see where am I at now. So Matthias was martyred in Ethiopia as well, and the weapon that was used was a lance. I do not know what a lance is. It looks like a sword, but yes, that's what's up. Then there is the Apostle Peter. Peter, whom Jesus says, upon you are Peter, and upon this rock shall I build my church. Which Peter had received the revelation of who Jesus was. Jesus is the Messiah. All right, so the symbolism of Peter would be the cross that is upside down and crossed keys, because the keys represented Peter as holding the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Peter was a fisherman, and Peter was introduced to Jesus by his brother James. All right, so Peter died in 66 CE under Emperor Nero. Hey, Emperor Nero was another, that guy was cray. He killed a lot of Christians. There was a whole fire in his city, and he blamed it on the Christians, and he killed a lot of Christians, including Peter. And then in 68 CE, he decided to commit suicide. Insane. Emperor Nero, crazy, insane. Okay, Philip. Philip is also one of the disciples of Jesus, who was actually quite involved in the breaking of the bread, when the bread had multiplied in the 5 loaves and 2 fish. So what is symbolic to Peter is a basket because of his part of feeding the 5,000. It is stressed that he stressed the cross as a symbol of Christianity and victory. That's quite interesting. So Philip is the one who stressed that the symbol of Christianity should be the cross, and its symbolism of victory rather than the symbolism of defeat. Simon the apostle, Simon the zealot, his symbol is a fish. His symbol is a fish lying on a Bible, which indicates that he was a former fisherman who had become a fisher of men preaching the gospel. Then there is Thomas. He was killed with a spear as a martyr for the Lord. And so his symbolism is a spear and a stone and an arrow. So then what happened to the disciples? How did they die? So Peter and Paul were martyred in Rome about 66 AD. 66 AD or CE. And during the persecution under the Emperor Nero, Paul was beheaded, and Peter was crucified upside down at his request, since he did not feel that he was worthy to die the same manner as the Lord. Andrew went to the land of the man-eaters, in what is now known as the Soviet Union. Christians there claim him as the first to bring the gospel to the land. He also preached in Asia Minor, modern-day Turkey, and also Greece, where he is said to be crucified. He is the one that was crucified on a X-shaped cross. That's how he died. Doubting Thomas. Thomas was probably the most active in the area of Syria. Tradition has him preaching as far as east as India, where the ancient Christians revered him as the founder. They claim that he died there when pierced with a spear of 4 soldiers. So Thomas was pierced with a spear from 4 soldiers. Philip possibly had a powerful ministry in North Africa. Interesting that Philip was a preacher in the northern parts of Africa. He converted the wife of a Roman proconsul. He got arrested for that and then cruelly put to death. Matthew, the tax collector and the writer of the Gospel of Matthew, he ministered in Persia and also Ethiopia, and it is said that he was not martyred but rather he was stabbed to death in Ethiopia. So he was not martyred, but apparently he was stabbed to death in Ethiopia. Bartholomew, who was a missionary, he went to India and also with Thomas to Armenia and also to Ethiopia and also the southern parts of Arabia. He was martyred for the gospel. Then James, son of Alphaeus, is one of the least of the three disciples named James, which is referred to the New Testament. There is some confusion when it comes to James, the brother of Jesus, but this is a different type of James. This James was clubbed to death and stoned to death. Oof, painful. But yeah, this James is the one who ministered in Syria, and then he got stoned and clubbed to death. There is Simon the Zealot, ministered in Persia and was killed after refusing to sacrifice to the sun god. Matthias was the apostle chosen to replace Judas, and he was also in Syria with Andrew, and he died by them burning him. Hectic. John, the disciple of Jesus and the apostle of Jesus, also went through the most. John is the only one of the company generally thought to have died a natural death from old age. He was the leader of the church in Ephesus, in the Ephesus area, and he's said to have taken care of Mary, the mother of Jesus, in his home. Let me see. He is credited for writing the last book in the New Testament, which is the Revelation of Jesus, or short known as Revelation. All right, early Latin tradition has him escaping unhurt from being cast into boiling oil. He was thrown into boiling oil, and he escaped unhurt. How crazy. And this all happened in Rome. So this is quite interesting. So I hope that you got to learn a bit more about the 12 apostles of Jesus and a bit of their life and about a bit of their lived realities and how they had died. I hope this was interesting, as it was interesting for you, as it was interesting for me. I hope that you have an amazing day. As you can see, my words are done for today. So I'm going to be sipping on my water and lemon and hoping to just gather my words again. I hope you have a fantastic day, and thank you so much for watching the show.